So here it is, guys, the much anticipated Pitbull 700R4 swap slash review slash all of the work that we've been doing over the past couple months to get this thing where it is today. We're going to talk about all of that. So let's throw this thing up on the lift, crawl underneath, and check it out. So the 700R4, where to even start? I've been doing so much work on this rig pretty much for the past year, because for those of you who may be new to the channel, the reason we ended up doing this whole install to begin with was because a year ago in Arizona, I actually blew up my stock C4 transmission.
Well, you look at that. Now that's just not nice.
Now, for those of you who have been watching the channel for a while, you know it's not the original transmission. It's not the first transmission I've blown up. I haven't had too much good luck with C4 transmissions, but that's basically what began this project, was my transmission blowing up. So the 700R4, really to kick off this project, kind of the first things that we did was we threw on a 1-inch body lift. Now, one thing that we realized as we continued on with the project is we should have gone probably with a 2 or 3-inch body lift, just because of all the hacking we had to do to the body. But we'll talk about that later. The main reason we put the 1-inch body lift on was because we didn't want any interference with the transmission tunnel or the body or anything like that up top, just because this transmission is a lot bigger than a C4. So we did that just for safety. If you're doing one of these, I'd probably recommend 1-inch or 2-inch body lift, maybe even 3-inch. As we continue on with this video, you can make that decision for yourself. So after the 1-inch body lift, took a little bit of a break, of course, and then finally got to the advanced adapters 302 to 700R4 adapter plate, which was super easy to install. While I was under here tinkering with the adapter plate, that is when my dad noticed that the frame, basically right where the track bar is welded on, that thing was like shredded apart. I mean, it was straight gnarly that we never noticed that. I don't know how long it's been like that or what caused it, but we ended up having to cut the track bar off the frame and then do a lot of repair, sand it down. We ended up throwing 1/4-inch steel on there to reinforce that and made some custom brackets, and then we actually had to shorten the track bar to fit the new mounting position. But other than that, you know, that thing's solid and fine, totally beefy now. But after that, that's kind of where the project stopped. With that in mind, I just want to ask you guys, how long has your project perhaps been sitting around, not tinkered with, just because you've been too busy or lazy? It's probably a little bit of both for me, but comment down below how long your project's been sitting, and hopefully with this coronavirus going around, you've got to work on it. Anyways, good to go there. Basically, after all that whole time off, what kind of sent us into action mode was the fact that our swap meet was coming up in 4 weeks, and it was my dream to drive this puppy out there. So me and my dad, we hopped out here and we went to town. We started notching the frame. We took all kinds of measurements and started throwing the 700R4 up. We took that in and out multiple times. Along with the 700R4, we decided to go with the Atlas 2. You know, if any of you guys are familiar with the Atlas, you know that those are what hardcore off-roaders use because of their super low gears, their crawling gears that you can take advantage of when you're out there on the trail. So we went with that. We actually got this from Gordon Bailey. Now, for any of you guys who have been in the Bronco community for a while, you may have heard of Gordon Bailey. He owns Bailey Built, and he was actually the catalyst for this entire process and build swap. He is a hardcore wheeler. If you've been around the channel for a little bit now, you may have seen him in the Moab recap from last year. The stuff that the dude crawls over is insane. It's gnarly. It's stuff that the Pitbull can't quite handle yet. And I do say yet. We're gonna get there eventually, Gordon. After he recommended this setup, we took his word for it. He told us to clock the Atlas up for more ground clearance and that you were gonna have to notch the frame. We put on a ton more metal, So this thing is straight beef. This thing's not going anywhere. Along with the Atlas 2, we did also get the Crossmember from Gordon just to save us some work. And I did leave that orange just to kind of pay homage to Gordon. So that's an inside joke. Perhaps one day I'll end up painting it. It does look kind of ugly under here, but this whole bottom looks kind of ugly. So maybe we'll just leave it, you know? It's not about being beautiful when it's a rock crawler, so. Anyways, because we weren't so much worried about keeping this thing pretty, because of the 700 R4 and the Atlas being so high up and so much bigger, we had to take a chunk out of the body up in the cab. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we probably could have avoided taking out as much if we would have gone with the higher body lift, but we didn't. The 1 inch was already in. We didn't want to do the extra work to take it out. I know that sounds kind of lazy, but you know, when you've got a 4-week deadline, that's just kind of what you do. We ended up just cutting a huge chunk out. I ended up fabricating a plate for that recently, actually about 2 weeks ago, which was, it's all gnarly, and we had to relocate the e-brake cables because the 700, not the 700 R4, because the Atlas was sitting up so high. So that was fun work there, a little bit of extra stuff. Had to replate the Crossmember on the body. Just different intricate stuff like that, just to make sure that all of this flowed and worked and there were no bindings or anything like that. All right, so after we did all of that work and got this thing kind of where we wanted it, we threw it all back up there, held it up there with jack stands, and threw the Crossmember up, mounted it, and just kind of marked really where we needed to drill the holes into the frame, because obviously this is a new Crossmember positioning point. And so took all of that down, took everything out, started drilling the holes, and I'm too embarrassed to say how long that took. I mean, I used air, I used battery, I used drill oil, and that was such a pain. Drilling through 1/4 inch steel is no joke. But ended up getting all that, welded in some sleeves to hold the bolt so that the frame wouldn't, you know, crumple underneath that pressure, and called it a day. After that was all dialed, we pulled it all down once again. We threw a gauge onto the bottom oil pan so that we could obviously tell how hot we were running. What else did we do? Once we had that, we ran the transmission lines up to the radiator. We did add an oil filter just because the C4, you know, puked all its guts out. We didn't want anything in the system, so we ran a filter. So with everything out, I threw a coat of gray primer over all of the welded areas just to make sure that we weren't going to get any cracks on the trail. We did take this out on the trail for testing. If you haven't seen the Alpine Lake video from 2019, go ahead and check that out. But I am happy to report that there are no signs of weaknesses in this thing. But anyway, so I threw the transmission and everything for the last time, wired the overdrive for the transmission, which was fun because I had no idea what I was doing, but figured it out. It worked. Another thing we had to do is we had to get a new exhaust system installed just because of the new Crossmember and everything that we had to do. So we went to Advantage Mufflers and Performance in Stockton. They did a totally sweet job. Just the way they ran it out of the way up through the Crossmember. Anyways, I do think that that is all down here other than the drive shafts. We did have to get some new drive shafts. Did have to run, you know, all of our stuff heading to the gasoline and stuff up. But again, a ton of work. If you guys could actually know all of the work that went into this thing in those 4 weeks, you know, under here, you know, it's some intense stuff. But, you know, we got it done. We're actually going to hop up to the cab, talk about some stuff we did up there, and then pretty much call this video a wrap. So let's go topside. All right, so there wasn't too much that we had to do up here. One thing that we did do was put an I did it tilt shift column that we had laying around. Just because all of this was apart, we decided to do it anyways, just to give us a little bit more functionality as far as that goes. But one of the big things, and basically the thing that has kind of been holding up this entire project, the reason I'm not driving this as a daily right now, is the custom center console that I decided that I wanted to do. I just had a plan. I wanted to mount the transfer case shifters and the transmission shifter all in one piece. And so I started fabricating this whole thing. I ended up, you know, making 2 renderings out of cardboard. At one point, all of this was patched together. I took it all apart after Slicker Rock Trail just to kind of get some cosmetic stuff dialed in, and am still in the process, but I'm hoping to have that done within the next couple weeks. Obviously that coronavirus is helping out actually getting these projects done, but that's kind of been the big stickler in actually finishing this project at this point, just because there has been so much work that I've had to do into actually dialing this thing in so it doesn't look like a total redneck hack job, which as you can see, I missed that mark. It pretty much does look like that, but it's been fun. It's been a learning process. I've had a good time actually doing this. I think it's gonna look sick when I'm done with it. I do plan on giving it a nice powder coat finish, so that should hopefully make it look a little bit better. But yeah, guys, so once I get the center console done, that's pretty much it. All I have to do is throw the seats back in, throw a top back on if I want to, and drive this sucker, which I am totally looking forward to. Now, as far as future plans go, I do have a couple. I do want to throw a full roll cage in this thing just so we can start maybe tackling some of the more gnarly stuff, not having to worry about this windshield caving in case something does happen. Other than that, the things are a sound system. I want to get a sound system for this thing because I'm 21, and who doesn't want a sound system at 21? I want to be bumping tunes out on the trail or out on the road or out wherever I take this thing. So I really don't know what direction to go with that. So if you guys have done any of that stuff, you've got any cool setups for stuff like that, or any brands that you recommend, I am looking for some of that stuff. So go ahead and leave that in the comments, any recommendations or suggestions that you guys have as far as that stuff. I'll definitely take those into consideration, and that would be a great help to me. But anyways, guys, I've kept you for long enough. I hope that this video was helpful or informative as far as all the work that had to go into this thing. If you guys have any questions, maybe on the more technical side, hopefully not on the more technical side, because I don't know how well I'll be able to answer these. I'm just glad it works. Go ahead and leave them down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer those. Anything you guys want to know concerning any of this stuff that I talked about, or anything in general, shoot them down below, and we'll be sure to respond to you guys. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for more updates with the Pitbull, with wild horses in general, with the new Bronco that is coming out, and all of the sick things that we've got coming up for you guys. If you haven't checked out the Bronco breakdown, do it. The Bronco stories, do it. It's a lot of sick, great Bronco content. So thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, with all of that being said, we will see you guys out there on the trail. Peace!